Good morning, Zio here, and today we travel across the pond to talk about something known as BAFTA, and you should pay attention because it's going to affect us, guaranteed. So, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do so now. I'm building an army and I need you to help me with my conquest of world domination, because a mad genius just can't do it alone. I need somebody to run around and be my minions. Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? So I hear you asking the question, Z, what exactly is BAFTA and why should I care? Okay, well that's simple. It is the British Academy of Film and Television Arts. And why should you care? Because it's going to definitely affect our own video game, television, and arts sector, of course. Anyway, so this is an awards thing, kind of like the video game awards. I'm sure you know what that is. If you don't, Google. I'm sorry. That's all I've got. No. Anyway, but seriously, this is the British version, essentially, of what we have. I guess, what do we call them? The Oscars or something for film, and then we have the video game awards and other stuff, you know, that has been going downhill over the years, of course, for various reasons, because of forced diversity, among other things, and they just aren't seeming really that interesting to watch. People usually watch for the video game stuff, for the trailers and things that are coming out and stuff to look at when it's not at E3, because then if it's not at E3 or something, you know, it might be at the video game awards, or it might be at the other thing now that I can't remember its name. We talked about it at one point in time. Anyway, so this seems pretty tame, right? So, eligibility. Entries are invited for the BAFTA Game Awards in 2021 from developers, publishers, and anyone involved in the production or promotion of title. Any game is eligible as long as it has been or will be released in the UK between the 1st of January and 31st of December 2020. No game that has previously been entered can be re-entered. This includes late releases from 2019 entered into categories presented at the awards in 2020. If a game was originally released prior to the eligibility period, but has received a significant update or attention between January 1st and 31st December 2020, it may be entered if it can be demonstrated that there are significant new levels of content and innovation. Entrants wishing to enter on the basis should consult with Sam D. Elia. See contact list prior to entry. All games released in 2020 will be eligible for a BAFTA Game Awards in 2020. Please contact us if you have a game in beta or early access, as special consideration applies. Now that seems pretty tame until you get to the next little part. This year, BAFTA will also require additional information to be submitted to support any game entry into the British game category, adhering to the BFI diversity standards as defined here, which we are going to go look at. So hold on, we're going to deep dive into the diversity standards of the BAFTA Gaming Awards. These standards, by the way, here's a hint, stifles creativity and keeps you from actually doing what you really want in order to check off checkboxes just to get an award. Anyway, the standards are a set of criteria developed by BAFTA and the BFI. The standards are split into 4 sections: in game representation, creative leadership, a development team, industry access, and player-based development, and under each section is a list of actions that studios can take to increase diversity and inclusion. Entrants into the British game category will be asked to self-assess against these criteria by providing the relevant information. In addition to the standards, we also introduced a bullying and harassment guidelines for games, designed to provide some archivable actions for companies to tackle bullying and harassment in the gameplace. If you haven't noticed yet, this entire section has nothing to do with the fucking game. Anyway, which really shouldn't have a place in this award ceremony whatsoever. Look, I'm all for tackling bullying and harassment, right? It happens. I'm all for having diversity of opinion, thought, and personality. Having multiple people from different locations giving their insight, their experience into something, and that's fine. But it literally has nothing to do with whether or not a game should win an award, right? It doesn't matter whether or not the person who created the music score or helped create the music score happened to be white, black, yellow, blue, purple, whatever it is that their skin color is, should have no bearing on whether or not that musical score is good or not. Because if it does, well, that's just racist. Anyway, entries. All entries should be made via the entry site, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Okay, so we're going to be diving into the standards here. This is important. Just going to say, this is ridiculous. When you do an award for something, right? If you're going to judge a property, whether it be a movie, a video game, books, whatever, there are certain criteria that you should be scoring these things on. We've seen, we've got these different games and stuff, they go into different categories, like, for instance, using music as an example, musical score, the soundtrack, is it good, is it bad, did it fit in the locations where it was, level design, storytelling, things like that. Were the characters superficial and shallow, or was there a deep connection between player and characters through the the NPCs or the player character? Was the story great? Was it marginally okay? Was it fantastic? Was it really, really bad? And things like that. Those are the things that games and stuff should be actually judged on. Essentially, if you're doing a review for a game, most things that a comprehensive overall good review of the game is going to tackle a lot of these subjects, right? And that's what these awards should be focusing on. Instead, these awards are going to be focusing on, I guess that as well, but also these new guidelines, because they need to know additional information on whether or not your game is worthy of having an award in order to do so. So, detailed how the video games will address underrepresentation in the lead and secondary characters. Doesn't matter. Playable character rosters, casting choices, the main and secondary storylines, themes and narratives, and where the game is set. Identify where they are unfamiliar characters or theme and narratives that are not frequently portrayed in the game, or shown how new perspectives describe where they are complex and non-stereotypical representation of characters. Who cares? Anyway, of cultures who are normally relegated to two-dimensional roles, detail the perspective of narratives or themes of a game and how they affect the way in which characters and cultures are portrayed. Anyway, if you make a game to these standards, you're going to have, one, probably not a whole lot of creativity behind it, because there's not a whole lot you can do, because it essentially ties you up, with two hands behind your back in order to make these things happen. And some games will just never, ever be eligible as a result of these kinds of standards, like, for instance, maybe a game that is more based historically accurate in a particular time period, unless they force something to be like, I don't know, a World War II simulator. We'll go with that because that's an easy one. That one always comes up. What is it, Battlefield series or something, right? Where, women were not the majority of people out on the front lines. In fact, most of them were not, except for if you were, say, playing a particular group of women in from a different country or whatnot. If you're following sort of more of the US and British side of things, it wasn't. It was mostly men, right? Or women in nursing roles and stuff like that. They weren't on the front line, but at the same time, you also had other countries who had platoons of that were women or something who, flew night raids and other stuff and did a lot of cool things, which honestly, again, I'm still going to go back to it. That should be a story. Just saying. Battlefield, you want to tackle a story? There's you a story. Anyway, but yeah, so we're going to go over this. To achieve Standard A, you need to meet 3 of the criteria below. You need to meet 3 of the criteria. Not 1, not 2, but 3 of the following criteria. There are a total of 6, I believe. Yes, 6 criteria, and you need to meet 3. Lead character, playable characters. At least one of the lead characters is from an underrepresented group. For non-narrative games where the cast is an ensemble, the total roster of playable characters meets 1 or more of the following targets: a 50-50 gender balance, 20% belonging to underrepresentation ethnic groups, 10% LGBTQ+, 7% D/deaf, is D deaf? Is that what it is? Just deaf or disabled. Significant amount of characters featuring regional diversity. Significant amount of characters are from a lower socioeconomic background. You should explain where these characters that are not frequently portrayed on screen and or how the game is offering non-stereotypical representation. So, yeah, okay, so 50-50 gender balance. Last time I checked, just gonna let you all know, I thought gender was a social construct, so BAFTA, are you being sexist? Britain, whoever, you guys are being horribly sexist right now. There should never, ever be a 50-50 gender balance, because that would mean that there are just purely men and women out there. So what about all the others? What are the other ones? I can't even remember. There's so many of them. It's hard to keep track. What about the non-binary people, the gender non-conforming people? What about the two-spirited people and all the other groups out there? I mean, they what about all them? What about those people who don't follow in, that gender balance? That should be stricken. I'm just going to say that's problematic. Anyway, belonging to an underrepresented ethnic group. What if the story doesn't take place in an underrepresented ethnic group area? I mean, seriously. Okay, what if it takes place in a place where there is no underrepresented ethnic group? What if, say, it's in, I don't know, where's a good spot? Africa or something, and does that mean you need 20% white, 20%, or the rest of it 80% African? I guess is that the breakdown it has to be? Huh? What? I don't even think that Resident Evil game did that, to be totally honest. There's way more of the other group there, more Africans than there were whoever else was in the game. Anyway, 10% LGBTQ. You've got to have somebody who is gay, regardless, or trans, or whatever. I mean, queer and all that good jazz, and whatever the plus is now, because it's a long string of things. What is it? LGBTQ, double, triple A, quadruple, two-spirited, something another. Yeah, the more people you fit under that umbrella, the less of a marginalized group it becomes. Just saying. Anyway, a significant amount of characters featuring regional diversity. What if the region doesn't have diversity? If we sit here and break this down bit by bit like this, we'll be here all day. Anyway, other characters. A2. The total of your secondary characters or principal non-player characters, NPCs, meet 1 or more of the targets below. A 50% gender, oh my gosh, it's the exact same thing, right? Same arguments right here. So if you can't meet A with your lead or playable characters, you must meet A2 with all your NPCs. might be a little bit more manageable depending on the game type. Just saying, maybe. Oh gosh, do you know the headache that's going to be? It's like, okay, how many of X do we have? Well, it looks like we need to come up with 2 more female characters so we can achieve 50-50 balance with our NPC population. Okay, that's gonna be fun for developers. A3, main story subject matter. The main stories, themes, or narratives of the video game is about underrepresented groups. The game should demonstrate diversity across the majority of the playtime in order to meet A3, not just a single section or element. Oh. Anyway, other storyline subject matter feature character backstory. There are other elements of the video game story subject matter or in-game character backstories that are about underrepresented groups. Anyway, location. The setting is wholly or partly in an underrepresented region or community. If the game takes place in an imagined or fantastical setting, please detail how this relates to real-world Orcs are black. Oh my gosh, I hate this so much. Orcs are not black people. Okay, just saying. Or orcs are not people of color, whatever you want to call them. Call people white. Elves are not white, and whatever else the arguments are, because I can't even remember them anymore. Anyway, you play a video game to escape the real world. That's the whole point to entertainment in general. When you go and watch entertainment that beats you over the flippin' head over and over again about real world things, it fails miserably. It's been doing it for the past several years. Unless you want to make the game about that, then that's fine. However, you don't want that. You just don't want that. God, I hate that. Yeah. Anyway, casting decision, background, non-player characters, NPCs. Casting choices of voice artists that address underrepresentation and challenging tropes and stereotypes. For games that feature background NPCs or crowds, does the game ensure that underrepresented groups are featured in significant amounts? No! Oh my gosh. This is the... Okay, so let's see. You have a group of people who are underrepresented in the world, right? In the fantasy world of the game. Let's just say Dragonborns are not very common in the world. We'll go with that as an example. Do you honestly think you're going to be seeing a significant amount of Dragonborns in that world as NPCs or in the crowd? No, because they're in the background, they're NPCs, and there's not a significant amount in the world because they are technically an underrepresented group in that fantasy world. I've DM'd a particular story where Dragonborns were kind of rare, which is where I get that example from, right? So when somebody is playing a Dragonborn and they're noticed, when they go to talk, and it's like, wow, I haven't seen much of your kind before. Where'd you come from, and all this other stuff, and that's like how it starts or whatnot. And you start chatting up with whoever because they hadn't seen a Dragonborn, but maybe once when they were 11 because they're so rare. In that game world, there's not going to be that many. They're never going to be in a significant amount of them in any one place, or there might be actually in that particular world because they were all lost to time and all this other stuff. Anyway, they were somewhere. Let's see. Standard B, creative leadership and development team. Detail how video games we address underrepresentation is in creative leadership and or development team identity. Identify the roles filled by people from an underrepresented group and the underrepresented group they are from. Where shortlist and again, it's the whole, you shouldn't really care who the person it is who made it, right? Until I started doing things like this, for the most part, it was very hard for me to even identify certain people, right? Before I started recording and looking into things and talking about stuff like this, as what I'm doing on BitChute and YouTube and things, if you told me that Todd Howard made whatever, right, and showed me a picture and said, hey, do you know who this is? I would be like, I have no clue who that is. No, nor do I care. Why should I care? Oh, well, this guy created Skyrim or whatever game it is that he did whatever. You know what I'm trying to say there. And it also went with a lot of actors, because as a normie in that particular field, I didn't care. I knew certain actors like Will Smith, loved Will Smith, right? Bruce Willis, I love Bruce Willis. So I can identify those two people and a few other actors, and I've been able to identify them for years and years because I really like what they do. But other actors or actresses or whoever that I may see, like Angelina Jolie or some of the other people out there, I may not have known who their name was. I may have liked whatever comedy they were in or whatever action film they were in, but for the most part, I didn't really care who they were. They did a great job at whatever it was that I enjoyed, and that was it. Of course, nowadays I'm much older and I actually know who a lot of these people are, so it's a little bit different. But for a normie, they may not actually understand who certain people are unless their name is huge or something, to the point that everybody knows who Leonardo DiCaprio is. But I guarantee you can still find people out there who have no idea who Leo is, right? Leonardo. Anyway, you may find people who may not know who those people are still today at this particular time and place, even though they were big names at once upon a time, right? Or still big names today. Because for the most part, the normal human being doesn't really give a damn what color or who it is, as long as they're doing the job well. Anyway, please note where the total development team size is less than 10, allowances will be made. So if you're a team of 1 or 2, well, of 1, maybe they won't be so harsh on you. Anyway, to achieve standard B, you will need to meet 2 of the criteria below. At least 1 or more of the following targets are met for the following heads of departments or creative lead roles. Administrative director, art director, audio director. Okay, so it lists a bunch of administrative, creative leadership roles. There must be a 50-50% gender balance, or 20 or at least 1 or more. Okay, so one of these. Doesn't have to be all. That's a little bit easier to handle. A 50-50% gender balance. 20% targets for those identifying as belonging to an underrepresented ethnic group. 10% target for those identifying as LGBTQ+, 7% targets for those identify as deaf or disabled. Same arguments apply as the very, very first one we looked at, right? Now, my question here for BAFTA is, what is considered an underrepresented ethnic group? It really depends on where the game was made. If the game was made in Morocco or someplace like that, is there anybody in Morocco making games? Anyway, as an example, say a studio fires up over there, what exactly would be an underrepresented ethnic group to that spot? I'm going to go ahead on a limb and say that particular underrepresented ethnic group is the group you don't care about. So it doesn't really matter, does it? But anyway, that would really depend on the location of where it's at, of course. And that also solely depends on who puts in applications. And, when it comes to hiring, meritocracy should be the best thing. Whoever's best for the thing, not the color of their skin or their ethnicity, I guess you can say. Whether or not they identify as, LGBTQ or disabled or deaf. If they're disabled in some way, but they are the best person for the job for, I don't know, development director, manager, then yeah, go ahead and hire them. But if they're not, if you're hiring them just because they're deaf or disabled, a pity hire is not what you want to do if you want your thing to succeed. Anyway, other key roles. At least one or more of the following targets are met for any other key role in teams. Animator, artist, audio, blah, blah, blah. We also consider key roles in the following items: business development, events, HR, legal, marketing, operation. Again, 50-50 Gen, 2010, and 7. Yeah. To achieve B, you need at least 2 of these criteria, by the way. Development team supporting roles. At least one or more of the following targets are met for the overall department. And workplace practices. The development studio fosters a healthy and supporting work culture. This includes, but not limited to, equality and discrimination policies, especially when hiring, disciplinary. You know what? That I'm okay with, right? Using that to determine whether or not a game should be an award show or win an award is ridiculous. But I'm actually okay with, this sort of thing. It's essentially being a decent person and following the law for here in the U.S. anyway, where you can't discriminate against certain things and stuff. Adoption of the whatever, though I don't know about that. Adoption of Yuki's Rise the Game pledge. I have no idea what that is, but I think we are going to look at that at some point. So I am going to pop that into another screen just to look at it later, because I'm kind of curious to know what that is, and maybe we can do a video on that. Please include details of any other relevant information. Standard C, industry access and opportunities. Oh gosh, 20-some minutes so far. We're still going. If you're still with me, you're a trooper. You're hats off to you. Anyway, Standard C is compulsory for all applicant applications. Commission may also be made for games with very small teams. Anyway, industry access and opportunities. Detail how your game addresses underrepresentation in relation to paid roles such as internships. Again, doesn't matter, isn't part of the flippin' game to begin with. To achieve Standard C, you will need to meet 2 of the criteria below. How many? There's more. There's a D, for fuck's sake. Anyway, paid employment opportunities. Your studio is offering paid employment opportunities such as apprenticeship, internships, to people for underrepresented group. Okay, we need a diversity initiative here. So, yeah. Training opportunities and skill developments. I just do not like this at all, because that is definitely racist. Anyway, training opportunities and skill development. Creation and business includes one-off bespoke and student work experience opportunities. Your studio is offering training opportunities including work experience to people from underrepresented groups. This actually, a lot of this stuff I could actually be okay with, right? Not judging a game being okay with, just as standard practice being okay with, right? If you didn't have to be completely and blatant racist about it and bigoted about it, right? When you start adding for one group over everybody else, that's where you lose me. Because you're being completely and utter bigoted at that point, right? You are excluding everybody else because you want to prop up one group over everybody else, whether the person deserves the opportunity or not. And just because somebody who may actually deserve that opportunity or who's worked really hard winds up not getting the opportunity because of a factor they could not help, for something they could not change. It's almost like, we're only going to do this for everybody except anyone with red hair. If you have red hair, gingers are not allowed because we don't like soulless people. Do you know how bad that sounds? Anyway, promotion to the role that constitute career progression. Team members from underrepresented groups are given roles that, again, favoring one group over another, being highly racist and bigoted. First job in a role that constitutes career progression for prior training. I think that's what I'm gonna work on the title for this. You know, the BAFTA is inherently bigoted and racist or something. I wonder if that's going to get killed off by YouTube real quick. Bet it would do good in BitChute though. Let's see. First job and role that constitutes career progression for prior training. Team members from an underrepresented group are given their first professional non-trainee role on the game. Why? Everybody needs to go through training, you dunce. Anyway, meaningful. That's like the dumbest thing ever. It's like, hey, you know, we know you just graduated as X here. That requires a lot of technical skill. So we're not going to train you in how to do that here. We're just going to throw you in, figure it out on your own. That is a horrible, horrible thing to do, right? To somebody. It's like, self-train yourself on our programs. Figure it out. You got 24 hours to do it. And be flawless at it. God, that would suck. Anyway, meaningful structured mentoring programs. Mentorship programs for people from underrepresented groups. You had it, and then you lose it when you start excluding everybody from it. Everybody should have access to a mentorship or something if they need it, right? Anyway, Standard D, player-based development. Details that promote marketing, community management, and design strategies that will enable your video game to access underserved and non-traditional players. Highlight access environments, BSL, subtitles, audio depictions, etc. The applicant should demonstrate a real commitment to marketing the game accessibility to as wide an audience as possible, and may include events or release active. The standard D, you need to meet 2 of the following criteria, because games are not for everybody. We actively discriminate against everybody that we don't want, which I say that jokingly, but with the way certain companies are acting, they are actively discriminating against certain groups of players in their player base purposely, which is wrong, considering back in the 90s games literally for everybody. Anyway, accessibility. Improve that has been added to the game, such as subtitles, audio description, text scrolling, voice. There's nothing actually wrong with that. It happens pretty much by default at this point in time. Underserved players. The target player base of a game is an underserved group with a clear strategy to reach them. Well, that would be dumb. I'm just saying. Hey, we got 100 people over here who never get, who we need to try and serve over the millions of other players. That would be dumb. You want a game to fail, that's how you do it. It was critically acclaimed, though. Critically acclaimed, although it sold 100 copies. Ugh. Anyway, online communities and player-based engagement with a grassroots organization. Ooh, this one's good. The gaming core team builds and maintains a welcoming online community. Blah blah blah. The game's core team supports and engages meaningful with local organizations and grassroots. In other words, become an activist for us in order to be, in order to be able to have your game win an award. And you need 2 of these criteria, and there's only 4. So if your company does not become an activist company for us, we don't want you. Partnership utilizes specialists and other expert knowledge. The games utilize specialists and or other knowledge in order to engage and serve or underserved players you have referenced in D2. Design strategies and marketing promotion strategies are both considered here. Right, whatever. Anyway, what if that one person who you wind up getting the people who made these rules don't like? Who was it? Sony with the Ghost of Tsushima, I think, and they had that master at whatever instrument it was he was playing, right? And everybody made a kerfuffle out of it because the dude, I think, was white. And he's like one of 10 or 5 actual masters in the entire freaking world who can actually play the damn instrument. And everybody was making a kerfuffle about it. These kind of people were making a kerfuffle about it because he was white and that was it. That was their big issue with it. Anyway, yeah, sounds fantastic. Video game awards are going down the shitter. Yay. Let me know what you think about all this down in the comments below. Of course, all this stuff is linked right down there for you, and I will see you in the next one. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment, smash that like button, and always subscribe for more. And of course, there are other videos floating around somewhere on the screen, so click one of those and see if you can find something that suits your fancy. Till then, I'll see you later. Bye.